Hello again and welcome to Elisabeth Hogarth Designs. A few weeks ago I popped into my local hobbycraft store and I found this collection of papers and stamps called A Diary of an Edwardian Lady. Now I remember this from the 1970s and I know that it is a great favourite with scrapbookers and journal makers. So these are the 12 by 12 papers that I've picked up, and this is the original book that belonged to my mum. And as I say, I remember her buying this. It was a big hit when it was reprinted in the 1970s, and it is based on the work of an Edwardian lady called Edith Holden. So her diary was illustrated in the year of 1906, and it is a classic piece of work. It is a joy to read in its own right. The illustrations are glorious. I can remember sitting as a child and being allowed to thumb through the pages. You can see we took great care of it, so obviously the book is nearly 50 years old now, but the quality of the illustrations is just incredible. It must have been something about that period in history, because you've got people like Beatrix Potter as well, and Cicely May Barker, who did the Flower Fairies, all creating work of this standard. So this book was bought by my mum, and I can remember it inspiring her to pull out her drawing things again. She used to work with watercolours, and I can remember her sitting in the evenings working through some of her own floral designs and sketches, and then she moved on and joined the Women's Institute, and she had a whole resurgence of her own crafting journey. So she would have been about the same age that I am now, so I can totally relate to rediscovering your craft. But it is a magical book, and I believe that's what these papers are based on. So you'll see the flowers and the floral pieces. So it's 118 GSM. You've got 32 sheets in the 8 designs. Ideally I would have liked it to have been double-sided, but I'm probably spoiled because I work with Graphic 45 and Craft Consortium papers. Um, it would be good for stamping on because you have got that white background and you have got plenty of each of the pages. I particularly like the blue and white, but the pastels work beautifully. The swallows are wonderful, and then you can see the butterflies from Edith Holden's designs, and then more of the pattern work, very Edwardian in style, and then you've got a more autumnal feel to the pages at the back. So these are the papers that I'm going to be working with, and I also got the set of stamps. Now these are very big. They don't really work for me with these particular papers, but as stamps I'll show you how you can make some really quick and easy cards. But for the cards I'm making to begin with, I'm going to be bringing in some of my smaller stamps for the sentiments and for the bunnies and hares. I mean, this is a Christmas set from Strawberry Moon, but I'm going to incorporate what I have in order to make some simple Easter cards for friends and family. So these are the cards that we're going to be working with today. It's like a free-fold tent card. You've probably seen this design around before. I'm used to working with it with the slightly slimmer panel, but I wanted to make some smaller panels as well, so I downsized the measurements, and then I was able to make exactly the same style in a slightly different size. So the papers I'm working with are the butterflies. because I want to give it a vintage feel, I'm going to be bringing in some of my craft card in Pinecone VersaFine Clear and Vintage Photo Distress Oxides for the edges. So the colour palette is quite simple. So to begin with, we're going to make the slimmer card. I'm going to be working with centimetres because that's easier on the particular trimmer that I have, but I will endeavour to scale it for you if you're working with Imperial. So we're working with a UK A4 piece of cardstock, and I'm cutting it down to 10.5 centimetres. The first card measures 10.5 by 30 centimetres, and to begin with I'm going to cut the panel. So with my piece of card on the 8.5 centimetre mark, I'm going to use the side ruler to cut down from 2 centimetres to 17 centimetres. Then I'm going to move the piece of cardstock along so that the left of the card is sitting on the 2 centimetre mark, and again I'm going to cut down from 2 centimetres to 17 centimetres. Then that's all the cutting that you need. You can of course use a scoreboard for this part, but this particular Stampin' Up trimmer means that I can cut and score at the same time. Now we're going to move the card along to the 17 centimetre mark, and you're going to score down between those cut lines, so between 2 centimetres and 8.5 centimetres. Move the piece of card along to the 4 centimetre mark, and again score between those cut lines. Move the piece of paper along again to the 2 centimetre mark, and again score between the two cut lines. Then we want to create the overall fold in the card. So because this is a 30 centimetre piece of cardstock, we're going to create our fold at 15 centimetres. So the left hand side of the card is at 15 centimetres, and all we're going to do is fold between the top to the bottom cut line and from the bottom cut line to the bottom. So you can see now, you can pinch the two sides, fold carefully the middle fold, and then pinch the lower fold to create a mountain and then a valley, and you've got your classic card base. You can burnish down the folds, and then this particular card is good to go, ready for decoration. So then we're going to run through the same thing again, and I will show you in real time so that you can make a note of the measurements if you wish to do so, but I will leave them in the comments below as well. So this time our piece of cardstock measures 28 centimetres. So we're going to cut that down along the short end of 28 centimetres. Then I'm going to turn, and again I'm using the cutting line and the side ruler, and this time the cut line moves from 3 centimetres down to 17 centimetres. So the piece of card is at 8.5 and then 2, and we're cutting down using our blade from 3 centimetres to 17 centimetres. Turn the piece of cardstock around for your fold lines, and again we're going to come in and we're going to fold between the cut lines at 17 centimetres. This time we're going to score along at 6 centimetres, so move the piece of card down to 6 centimetres, fold, And finally we're going to move the piece of card down to 3 centimetres for the final fold. Because this piece of cardstock is 28 centimetres long, we're going to make our centre fold at 14 centimetres. Then I'm going to use my scoring blade to create a fold line from the top down to the cut-in line, and then from the cut-in line down to the bottom. And so there you have the second card with a slightly smaller panel and then a wider base, so you could well add a sentiment or some more embellishments to the wider base. So now we've got our card bases ready, we're going to come in and we're going to create our panels. So I'm using one sheet of 12 by 12, which is more than enough. And for the first card, card number 1, we're creating a middle mat that measures 6 centimetres by 12.5 centimetres. The two sides will then be 1.5 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and the lower panel will be 1.5 centimetres by 13 centimetres, and then you want one more piece for the inside of the valley fold, which is 1.5 centimetres by 6 centimetres. The second card requires a mat that is 6 centimetres by 10.5 centimetres, and then we're going to create a base of 2.5 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and then the inside of the base is 2.5 centimetres by 6 centimetres, and the side strips are 1.5 by 11 centimetres, and then the lower base is 2.5 by 10 centimetres. But as I say, I will leave you the dimensions in the comments below. To give the vintage feel, I'm then going to ink all of the edges using the Vintage Photo Distress Oxides. Moving on to the stamped elements, the mats are 0.5 centimetre smaller than the patterned panels. The sweet bunny in the Little Fawn stamp set, so this is going to be my Easter bunny for this card. I'm using my stamping platform and the VersaFine Clair pine cone, and all I'm going to do is stamp up the images, and then I will bring in the sentiment and then work my way through each one of the panels. For this card I want to duplicate the smaller bunny, so I'm using the measurements along the side of the stamping platform to line up where I want the bunny to be. So you can see me move it down and then by eye work out the space in between so that I've got an equal border at the top and the bottom. And then I can also bring in the Happy Easter to the centre of the panel. This is a great way to use the stamping platform. Repeat patterning is what it's really made for, so it makes these types of cards relatively quick and simple to make. So now I've got all the elements in place, I'm going to spend a few moments sticking them all together. as an added extra, here are the A5 stamps. As I mentioned, they are quite large, so I think I will use them at a later date, probably for some 7x7 cards, but I thought I would show you some very quick ways to make notelets. These are 4x4 inch cards, and I'm incorporating some of my sentiments from Let It Be from Graphic 45. This is the first time that I have tried these Hobbycraft stamps, and I'm interested to see the quality compared to the things that I'm used to working with. So I've got a 4x4 craft card blank, and I'm going to lay it flat by adding some removable tape to the inside and then popping it in my stamping platform. So the B stamp itself is around about 3 inches wide, and it is narrower, thinner than the Graphic 45 stamp. So I'm placing my sentiment in first, but I'm not going to stamp everything at the same time because of the different thicknesses of the polymer. So the Hobbycraft stamps are flimsier and thinner, but I have to say, once I tried them, the quality of the stamping was good enough for me, and I used the VersaFine Clair to compare it with, and it stamped up beautifully the first time. It took the ink really well, and I was able to get very good results. So here's the B, and I'm stamping that down carefully. You can see it in real time, and you can see that I get a very good impression. I just needed to go back in and re-press down the winged area. So the B's in place, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to stamp the sentiment. And as you can see, I end up with a lovely little notelet card. So this is it in the straight design, and I also did one at an angle, but I'm going to finish it off by rounding off the corners, and then eventually I'll add some of the brown and gold sequins. I'll also show you the swallow. It's a very large stamp. It would be really good for making colouring pages for children, and I guess you could pull out your watercolours and your inks and make some very large toppers to go in your journals. So all I'm doing here is adding the ink, and you can see the quality of the image. I wasn't entirely sure when I first saw them because they were a little bit flimsy, but you can see that this is the first time of stamping. They haven't been primed, and the results are lovely. It's a very fine line, so it does look like Edith Holden's illustration, so it's a great way to replicate her designs. I'm bringing in the Tim Holtz sentiment cards. So these are self-adhesive, and there's a wide range of wording and sentiments to use. So I'm looking for something appropriate for a bird flying. Came across fly, so that's what I popped onto the card for a sentiment. And then I will move on to creating a snowdrop card. I turned the stamping platform around because I needed to work from the 21 cm mark. So again, this is where I'm using the stamping platform for repeat patterning. So with the 4x4 inch card on the 21 cm mark, I placed the stamp roughly where I wanted it. The trick to this is to have the stamp design coming off the page and then moving it along so that you can repeat the stamp. And all I'm doing here is stamping and then moving the left hand side of the card along 3 centimetres so that I've got an equal distance between each stamped image, and I'm able to then add in a sentiment using the Tim Holtz sentiment stickers, and slightly later on I'll add some sequins. Here I have the quick and easy notelet cards. You've got the snowdrop, the swallow and the 2 bumblebee cards. And finally we have the 4 inverted stepper tent cards with the Edwardian Lady papers, and I've got the pale pink that I used to begin with, and then here are the finished butterfly paper cards. I did look online for the 12 by 12 papers and the stamps, but I couldn't see them as of the end of March, so I'm guessing that these are in-store products only. But I think it's a lovely range. I think it's very reminiscent of the original book, and I've ended up with some relatively simple and stylish cards for spring and for Easter. Behind the scenes I've been working on a variety of other design team projects, and I'm really hoping that I can share these with you very soon. They're quite spring-like, some of them are very cute. I think you will like them. So please do come back and join me at Elisabeth Hogarth Designs very soon. Take care and bye bye for now.